My name is Erin Taylor. I go by ET. I'm the Marketing and Membership Director at Green Energy Consumers Alliance. And I'm joined by some of our friends at EnergySage, which is, we're going to explain in great detail, is a company that aims to make solar and other green energy technologies easy to research. That's really and accessible, and that's really very in line with our mission as well as a nonprofit. So we've formed a partnership with EnergySage, and they're going to be the bulk of this presentation today. So I'm gonna just take you through a little intro, and then we'll hand it over to our friends from EnergySage. So Green Energy Consumers Alliance is an organization. We have a mission to speed the transition to a low carbon future by harnessing the power of energy consumers. But when it comes to how we do that, one of the big ways is we enable people in communities to make green energy choices. And that's sort of why we're hosting this webinar today, because we think EnergySage is an extreme enabler of helping people make the choice to go install solar. So that's why we recommend them, and that's why we invite them to co-host webinars with us to sort of get a little more information into your hands about that process. But just a little background on us. We're a nonprofit founded in 1982, and our work centers on pro-consumer, pro-environment in Massachusetts and Rhode Island specifically. Though a lot of our educational resources are valuable at the national level, and some of our programs do serve greater New England, we primarily focus our programming and work in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. So one thing you will find out today that I'll just go ahead and tell you now is that although we typically work to refer people to EnergySage for solar information in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, EnergySage does serve a national audience. So if you're not from Massachusetts or Rhode Island, or if you're here for somebody else who isn't, then this webinar is still going to be incredibly helpful to you. We're pro-consumer and pro-environment because we think they go hand in hand. We have seen over the years that what is good for the environment and climate is ultimately what's best for consumers' health and their comfort and their wallet. And that especially true of energy changes you want to make in your home. So we have programs that help people with energy efficiency, solar, green power, heat pumps, electric cars. And you can check out all those different programs at greenenergyconsumers.org. Today, we're focusing in on solar. But we also do policy advocacy because we really benefit from the lived experience of people who are people like y'all, who really want to install solar or drive an electric car or install heat pumps or support renewable energy in our region. Your experiences doing that work in your own lives really informs the kind of advocacy we can do at the state level, because we can go to the state level, Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and say, here are the barriers that consumers are facing when they're trying to install heat pumps or trying to install solar. So we typically advocate for incentives to bring costs down, or zero upfront costs or really steep rebates or discounts at point of sale for lower income residents. We advocate for, the changes to the marketplace and regulations that really push vendors of these and installers of these technologies to have to really know their stuff and shift to recommending that they are installed. So all of that really makes a difference. So it takes your one little step that you're doing today, installing solar, and it makes it sort of a bigger thing that helps other people across the state attain green energy solutions. So today's agenda, I'm going to talk quickly about other green electricity options because I know solar isn't always doable for everyone. I'm going to briefly tell you why we recommend EnergySage if you are moving ahead in your solar journey. We're going to do a quick poll, And then we're going to have a presentation by EnergySage Solar Advisor Matt Schuler, who's also joined today by Ben Soniga from EnergySage. And then we'll have up to 30 minutes for questions and answers. So down at the bottom of your screen, hold on, let me go back. Down at the bottom of your screen, if you have settings like me, if you hover over your Zoom toolbar, you'll see Q&A, and that's where I'd love for you to put your questions. And don't just put your questions there, but look at other people's questions, and if you like them, click the thumbs up and upvote them so that we can really make sure that we prioritize the questions that the most of you want answered. Last time we did this webinar, we got through almost all of the questions, but that's never a guarantee. So upvoting is really, really helpful. And please do remember, if you have specific questions about your project, they might not be able to go into great detail today here, but EnergySage does offer a service where you get to meet with a solar advisor like Matt, and you can really talk deeply about your own project. So, upvote. Q&A. I already see someone using it. I appreciate it. So just briefly, I wanted to touch on other green electricity options. So we do offer a program where you literally go online, you sign up with your electric account number, and then we buy renewable energy to match the electricity that you use. And that program is called Green Powered. So we buy green electricity on your behalf. When you are buying green electricity in this way, it's helping to reduce the need for fossil fuels on the grid. And over the 21 years that Green Powered has been in existence, it has funneled those dollars that we get from members of Green Powered to help build over 30 onshore small-scale wind turbines, several large solar projects, many, many, many hundreds of small solar projects, a few anaerobic digesters, and new low-impact hydro facilities. So we really have been funding sort of parts of the microgrid, and we're proud of it. So if you want to sign up for that program, it does cost a little bit more, but you can do that at greenenergyconsumers.org. At least 21 communities in Massachusetts and 7 in Rhode Island offer their own green electricity options through community choice electricity programs. And if you want to find out if yours does, I've got a link here that I will send after, that is, it links to the communities that work with us to provide renewable energy options to their customers. The nice thing about these options is over time, they often work, even though you're going up to 50 or 100% renewable, they often actually work out to be less if you take it over a couple of years than what the basic utilities brown power option is. And that's because of the way that these programs are run and how they get their electricity supply. So this is super cool. If you don't see your community on this list, don't despair. Just go to Google and write community choice electricity and your town's name and see what comes up. And if it doesn't come up, feel free to email me and say, you know, I want to learn more. I want this to happen in my community. Another big thing we like to point out is that green competitive electricity suppliers are rampant. They will send you mail. You will hear them on the radio. The mail you get from them will look like it's from your utility. They will knock on your door and they will tell you that your rate is going up and you better sign here if you want to make sure it doesn't. I've seen all kinds of shady practices, and it's been reported to us by our members, and also the Massachusetts Attorney General is so fed up with it that for the past several years they've been taking action. So it's very important that I say that you're going to get offers to switch your electricity supplier. If they don't come from your community, then it's really been proven not to be a good deal, and it also isn't usually local renewable energy either, and often doesn't even need your money. So we just recommend you don't take the bait on those green competitive supplier offers. We have lots of information about that on our website and blog. And lastly, again, it's important to us that we do policy work that that makes renewable energy more of a part of the electricity that we all use by default. So we do a ton of advocacy around that and always have. And that just makes renewable energy equitable. It brings the benefits to everybody, and it doesn't cost anybody any more money. So if you can find it in your heart to donate to the work we do, greenenergyconsumers.org/donate, then it helps us with all of those programs I just spoke about and the advocacy work we do. So we just really appreciate that. If you like this webinar, or you like the work we do, we appreciate your donations. So let's move on to the solar part of this webinar. We recommend EnergySage for solar shopping. We know a lot of people are out there looking for solar. They call us. We've been involved in helping consumers install solar for over 20 years. So we have seen all kinds of different things from solar installers and solar programs and been involved in them. In 2017, we decided that EnergySage was doing a really amazing job. Not only were they doing, the transparent solar process, but they were taking steps for consumer protection, and they had a product that worked. So you get competitive pricing because you have installers bidding behind the scenes for your business, and they don't have to do the marketing to acquire you. So oftentimes you save a little money when you go through a service like EnergySage. You register and you get side-by-side quote comparisons. You can receive them anonymously, so you don't get any sales calls from the solar installers until you want to talk to them, and that's amazing. So the privacy part is great. They also have independent, knowledgeable advisors like Matt, who will talk to you about your options and have literally no incentive to steer you to one installer versus another. And then all the installers that they're connecting with on your behalf have been vetted through a rigorous system of making sure that they're going to do a good job with you as a customer. Registration is free. It's really quick, and you can go through greenenergyconsumers.org/solar and start there. Because if you do decide to register for EnergySage, if you haven't already registered, and then ultimately you do install solar with one of the installers you find on EnergySage, we get a kickback that we put toward our mission of $250. So we do appreciate if you decide you want to sign up for EnergySage today, if you go through our link, greenenergyconsumers.org/solar. We will be flashing that link a lot, and you will also get an email from me with that link in it. So I'm just going to do a quick poll about where you are in your solar journey. Then I'm going to hand it over to EnergySage, and we're going to start looking at some of the questions you're already putting in the Q&A. So I'm going to launch this poll. Please be ready to answer the question on your screen. There are 2 questions. First is, where are you in your solar journey? So if you would all go ahead and take the poll, I'm starting to see answers coming in. We'll give it about a minute. And then the second question is, what is or has been your biggest hurdle on your solar journey? Okay. Going to give it about 10 more seconds. If those of you who haven't taken the poll, go ahead and do so. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of answers dipping in right now. All right, I'm about to close this down. Although I see more coming in, so I will wait. I will wait. 5, 4, 3, 2. All right, closing this poll. So I'm going to share the results. It looks like a lot of you are just starting out, which is cool. And a good number of you are in the process in some cases as well. So that's great. This is going to be a good introductory webinar for a lot of you. And the biggest hurdle, we're seeing cost, roof, understanding the rebates and incentives, finding or choosing an installer. These are all super common hurdles. We're going to address some of them today. The roof is by far always one of the biggest. So great. Now, without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Kate for the screen share. And then we're going to have Matt and Ben take over for the rest of the presentation.
Great. Thanks so much, ET. Looks like we got our slides coming up here. I'll go ahead and introduce myself very quickly, just say a couple things about EnergySage, and then have Matt introduce himself. I'll kick it over to him for a lot of the technical part of the program that we're going to have today. I'm Ben Sonigo. I'm a partnership manager with EnergySage. I manage our nonprofit partnerships. I have a background in nonprofit advocacy in the renewables space. And I'm very excited to be talking to you about solar today, but worth saying as well that ET did at the top as well. EnergySage is the nation's leading home electrification marketplace. It's not just solar that we can help you with, and we are very, very laser focused on consumer protection, helping you get the best price and making it transparent. And so we're going to tell you a little bit more about how to actually use EnergySage for those who are just starting your research journey now. But that's what I'll say at the top. ET kind of described some of the bells and whistles already, but we're going to talk more about that later on. And why don't I just kick it over to Matt to introduce himself quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ben. And thanks so much, everyone, for taking some time out of your day to chat with us. So introduce myself. I'm a senior advisor over on the energy advising team at EnergySage. We essentially serve as the primary person-to-person customer resource for anyone using our platform. It's not always easy to shop for something like solar or clean energy products. It's typically not something people will do more than once or twice. So it's understandable you might need a little assistance going through the process. And in tandem with the EnergySage goal of making clean energy more accessible, more transparent, and really easier to shop for, our goal is to kind of help you make the most educated and empowered decision possible when making your purchase and your personal transition. And so I speak with people daily about their solar search, about quotes they've gotten, really to help you align your goals with the options that are out there, and really help you lay out the best path forward for proceeding. So today we'll talk a little bit more directly about kind of the technical background of what to expect when looking into solar, as well as how EnergySage can help you through that process. Solar is our primary resource, but we also have marketplaces for community solar, which we'll chat a bit about, as well as heat pumps. So we ideally are trying to create a one-stop shop for everyone to do their full home electrification and meet your needs.
And then I think, Kate, this is pictures of us, which we don't need to dwell on very long. This is our mission, simply stated. And, I kind of already said this. And so I think we can go ahead and jump straight to the start of the understanding the basics of solar. So Matt,
Great.
Go right ahead.
Absolutely. So for anyone who hasn't shopped for solar before and doesn't really have much of a background of what to expect, to speak a little bit more directly about what actually makes up a home PV installation, you don't have too many pieces. It really is not as complicated as it might seem. You have the photovoltaic panels mounted on your roof or on the ground that draw in energy from the sun. You have the inverters. So for context, panels generate direct current. Your home uses alternating current. So the other key part of the system is a piece that essentially makes the energy generated by the panels usable by your home. When you're shopping for solar, these are the two core pieces you're going to see presented to you as options for panels, options for inverters. To go more in the weeds, there are alternate types of inverters you can look for. You can have a central string inverter or individual micro inverters on each panel. At the end of the day, as long as you're looking at quality equipment, there's a number of ways you can get the job done there. You have the racking and mounting systems that are actually going to attach the system on your roof or, again, on the ground near your home. You have performance monitoring systems installed with the actual panels and inverters themselves to help you track the output of your system, as well as the consumption within your home. And lastly, there's an optional solar battery. So batteries have become considerably more popular within the last couple of years as the technology has improved. We'll go a little bit more directly into how solar works with your utility in a minute, but a battery is an optional addition that allows you to be more self-sufficient. You can use more of your power directly at home, minimize the energy you would need to draw from the grid. Whereas with a basic panel and inverter combination, you're essentially giving yourself an alternate option to pair with utility power and ideally save as much money as possible while being a little bit more green in the process. Moving right along here, I think we have a diagram of really what solar looks like when it's fully connected to the home. Again, generated off the panels, energy goes through the inverter into your main electric panel in the home, and then is either routed into the appliances within your home or back out through your electricity meter and back to the grid. And that secondary part of the process there is really how solar works fundamentally from a utility perspective. If you want to think about your classic home consumption, you use power throughout the day, really. You're going to use power in the middle of the day, in the evening, maybe when you get home from work, and even throughout the night, there's going to be some consistent power draw. Whereas with solar, you're going to be generating most of your energy during a handful of clear hours in the middle of the day when the sun exposure is at its peak. So realistically, if you're not producing the energy exactly when you're consuming it, how does that actually work from a financial perspective? How is solar actually able to help you offset your needs and your electric bill? Essentially through a program called net metering, and the next slide here has a bit of an overlay of how this really works. When you over-generate power during the day, which by design you will, you send excess power back to the utility company and essentially receive store credit through your utility for the energy you're sending back. So essentially your meter rolls backwards when you export to the grid. The utility company tracks this excess power. They credit your account for the excess energy you're sending back. And then when you draw from the grid, let's say in the evening when you get home from work, at night, during a cloudy day when it's raining and the sun's not out, you've already essentially covered at least a portion of that bill financially through the credits you're sending back. And all that clean energy you're producing off the home, even if you're not able to use it, it's getting dispersed throughout your community and helping someone offset their energy needs with more and more clean power. So even if it's not directly offsetting your own consumption, from a net clean energy perspective, you are producing as much as you're able to consume if you size your system properly. This net metering program, especially in New England, I'd say New England has some of the better utility rates in the country for offsetting power with clean tech. They give you in most areas one-to-one retail value, which again, from a financial perspective is fantastic. You can largely cover almost your full electric bill with solar if you have the roof space for it. And then lastly, to again, go back to the battery, for people who are looking for some protection against power outages, for people who are looking to really be as independent from the grid as possible, that's where the battery is a nice optional addition. You can put in a battery to prevent you from ever needing to draw from the grid and to give you some ways to get through a stretch of blackouts if you lose power often. But again, it is entirely optional. Again, some basic general benefits of solar. You're reducing or potentially completely eliminating your electric bill, reducing your environmental impact, you're reducing your carbon footprint, preventing yourself from taking a hit against rising energy costs. So we're national, but we're based out of Boston. And I will say for anyone else living in Massachusetts, utility rate spikes have not been great over the last couple of years. We see them almost every month at this point. Electric prices aren't going down, especially as fossil fuels become less and less profitable to generate for the gas and oil and gas companies. So renewables are a great way to hedge against that. And especially if you're able to own your own system, you're essentially prepaying your electric bill for the next 15, 20, 25 years. And that's a great way to prevent you from really being at the will of the utility for whatever price they charge for the energy you're drawing. So you're helping support and eliminate your electric bill, creating and supplementing the renewable energy economy around your area, creating jobs, and lastly, increasing your property value. So it's not talked about quite as much, but homes with solar do resell for more. So if you go solar and sell your home in 5 or 10 years, that will sell for more. The new homeowners are going to be able to essentially have most of their bill covered already while moving in. So that's another great way to kind of add value through solar, even beyond just covering your electric bill. Some general frequently asked questions when going in, I would say beyond this, the most common question I get when speaking with new customers looking into solar for the first time is what should I be asking? People, they might not even really have enough of an idea going in of exactly what questions are necessary when you're looking at it. And I would generally say, just have an understanding of what your goals are. Are you looking to fully cover your bill? Are you looking to be as independent from the grid as possible? Do you want to maximize your return on investment, or are you looking to maximize performance? Having a general understanding of your goals for solar are really going to help you reframe your search. Beyond that, though, as just some basics, understanding your roof. So making sure that your roof is going to be a good fit for solar, ideally southeast or west facing with open space. Understanding what your electricity needs are. So having a rolling usage history so you have an idea of how much energy your home consumes. Understanding your tax liability. We'll talk about this more a little bit later, but beyond covering your electric bill, a key incentive for solar is the 30% federal investment tax credit. So if you put in a system that costs $100,000, you receive a $30,000 tax credit for going solar as long as you pay enough in federal income tax to be able to claim it. So understanding your tax liability situation and working with a CPA to map that out can be helpful. Lifespan of the system, it's built to last. So solar, there's no moving parts, there's no consumables. It's not like a car where you have to change the oil every year. It really is a relatively low maintenance expansion to your home. And by extension of that, it tends to last a while. So the base warranties on most solar products are going to be about 25 years. So you're putting in a system that is going to be functionally a permanent improvement to the home for at least the time span most people will be in their home for. So again, you're not doing this as just a quick change to be able to give you 2 years of worth of benefits from your energy bill. You're doing this for a lifetime shift in how you consume power and really making the full energy transition at your home. Last one, and this one is pretty common. Should I wait for better technology? So solar, relatively speaking, is new, and it's been around for a while at this point. But in the grand scheme of home improvement and energy performance, I'd say solar adoption is definitely on the new side of the coin. And a lot of people will say, what if a panel comes out next year that's 5% more efficient? What if 5 years from now there's a whole new style of technology that's going to completely change how people install solar on their home? Should I wait around for that? It's a fair question. I would generally put it in the perspective of, if you're able to put in a system today that fully meets your needs, there's really no reason to wait unless you were going to be able to spend a quarter of the total investment cost 2 years from now, which I'd say, especially with new technology adoption, is almost never the case. New tech tends to cost more until it's more widely available. And solar technology, though it has gotten more efficient, it still largely works the same as it did 5, 10, even 15 years ago. So if you're in a position where your home is not ready for solar, that's one thing. If you're in a position where you're able to put in a system that's going to fully meet your needs, every year you go solar, every earlier year you go solar is another year's worth of utility bills you've already offset. So, putting in the sort of cost of holding out and cost of waiting, as well as part of the evaluation on your end, I'd say is always worth keeping in mind.
I'll also jump in and say, so Matt's about to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act, but in terms of local incentives, which we don't have a great deal of attention to in this presentation, Massachusetts has a program that combines, it's called SMART. So when you install solar, you can sell the renewable energy credits as well as do the net metering that Matt described. And Massachusetts combines those into one reward and credits it back on your electric bill. And every year that we go on, that credit gets a little smaller. So, acting soon also might help you get a bigger smart
Great
reward.
point. Yeah, great point. We don't go too much in depth into local incentives in this presentation, but there are absolutely a lot of them, even within New England, as well as other areas that I'd say, to plug EnergySage a bit as well, we help you model that on your quotes. So when you register with EnergySage, we will have sections within the bids that are going to show you what the savings look like, factoring in local incentives, rebates, the federal tax credit. It obviously, there's a lot of moving parts there, so we try to help boil that down as much as possible. And yeah, to reiterate there, Massachusetts is a great state for solar. There's local incentives, great utility buyback rates, unfortunately high cost of electricity. So if you're able to do it, it's always at least worth getting some numbers on.
Cool. And I'm actually going to say just a couple of words about the Inflation Reduction Act, since I think Matt hit the TLDR here already, and I've seen a couple of questions in the chat about this. You probably heard about the Inflation Reduction Act. Huge federal investment, thanks to all the many advocates around the country for clean energy and all of the citizens that spoke up and spoke out in order to get our legislators to pass something that's sort of monumental in terms of an investment in clean energy and climate. Some really good news here for solar. The solar investment tax credit was updated and expanded through the year 2034. So it was set to sunset down from 26 to 22 to 0. Now that is bumped back up to the original maximum value of 30%, 30% tax credit that will begin to sunset in 2032, and eventually will be gone by 2035. But again, the too long didn't read here, since there'll be a bunch of numbers on this slide and the next slide, and we're not necessarily talking about other electrification tech, is that there's kind of never been a better time to consider solar, storage, heat pumps, an electric vehicle. There's a whole new sort of suite of incentives available to you. And for the sake of this presentation, since we're talking about solar and we're talking about storage, which I saw some questions about in the chat, there is a new credit that you are now eligible for in 2023 here, for standalone battery storage, which there was not before. So again, never a better time. And you know, to answer one of the sort of frequently asked questions that I hear around this, is, you know, do I have enough tax liability? Like Matt said, talk to a financial advisor, talk to a CPA. But one thing that I get asked a lot is if you can roll over a chunk of that 30% if you don't have enough tax liability. The answer is yes. So if you don't claim all of that 30% when you do buy a solar system in the first year, then you can claim the rest of that in the following year. A quick plug here: if you're considering solar, if you're one of those people who are, you know, a little bit of a ways down the journey and you already have quotes that you're looking at, the process of getting, you know, quotes and getting the system installed and interconnected and turned on can take 3-4 months. You know, so you know, the timeline for you to get that done this year and claim that on next year's taxes versus the following year is getting tight. And so if you are considering and you do have quotes, and you want to be able to claim that on next year's taxes, do keep that in mind. Next slide. Yes, so I'm gonna basically skip past this. We will share this slide deck afterwards, as well as some more resources for EnergySage that you can take a peek at to dive deep on some of these other home electrification technologies, as well as some really new, exciting credits for electric vehicles. But for the sake of time, since I know we're tight, I'm gonna keep moving through into community solar. I think ET, you're gonna jump in there.
I just wanted to say that because I've seen a couple of questions in the chat related to that. One really cool thing about the Inflation Reduction Act is that if you need to increase your home's electric capacity, like capacity for electric appliances, like EV charging, induction stoves, and heat pumps, the Inflation Reduction Act also has rebates and incentives to do that. And you will typically do that with an electrician. So putting that in there because it's cool and people don't always think about it.
Great. Well, I guess I can kick in here to start taking things off on community solar, and I'll try to move through these quick as well. I know we have a bunch of questions and I don't want to take too much time here. And I do want to iterate on the question side as well. We will try to get to as many as we can. If there are questions that make more sense to handle kind of on a more individual basis, I'll point out that we'll be following up with our contact info. I am happy to help out one-on-one for anyone interested in registering with us. And so for more project specific questions, if it's not something we can really get to today, we will be following up on that. So not to worry, we'll try to get through every question either today or in a follow-up process as well. But community solar. So as far as a value add for this, if you haven't heard of it before, I'm sure everyone here has been driving down the road on any highway at a certain point and seen those fields with thousands of solar panels laid out. If you have come across those, and there are plenty in Massachusetts now, that's likely a community solar farm you saw. Community solar is essentially a community-based alternative to rooftop power for people who are looking to help support clean energy in their area and save some money in the process. Essentially, with community solar, you subscribe to and sign up with a local solar farm. Those solar farms are incentivized by the utility and state to generate and export power directly back to the grid. And in doing so, they receive financial benefits and are able to sell their net metering credits that they generate at a discounted rate compared to the retail cost for power. So by subscribing to a farm, you are essentially helping fund that solar farm, and in exchange are essentially paying for your electric bill at a discounted rate, kind of just like buying a gift card for your utility power at a 90 cents on the dollar rate typically is going to be the general average. So for people who don't have a great roof for solar, for people who are renters, for people who are going to be moving in 2 years, this is an alternative and a lower commitment option for you to be able to go green in the process and save some money against your electric bill in areas that are viable. And EnergySage, we have a marketplace for community solar as well. You just plug in your zip code, you can browse available farms and submit an application directly through us to get connected right to the grid. moving on to the next page here. Again, as far as how this actually works from a logistics perspective, the community solar provider is independent from the utility, but through utility and public funding, they export power directly back to the grid. You pay for the credits they generate and offset your bill in the process. The registration process only takes a couple minutes. You just need to provide some utility info or provide your electric bill, and then provide your account info through your utility so they can coordinate your allocation, figure out how much energy is necessary, and help you start saving as soon as possible. For logistics on subscriptions, typically there is going to be at least a 6-month cancellation window to make sure that they can reallocate the power. So have an understanding of when you think you might be moving off, but as long as you're moving within the same utility region, you can transfer your subscription to a new home. So again, to clear that up, for anyone who thinks that now might not be the best time for rooftop power, or for anyone who's really not able to go solar at their home, community solar is a fantastic alternative. As a renter myself, I will say I don't own solar panels on my home currently, but I have been an active community solar subscriber for years now. It's a fantastic alternative. Very quick snapshot on billing. I know this is, I'd say, a little bit in the weeds for us to cover today, but there are alternate ways that community solar billing works. Consolidated, the first point being that you have one bill, so you're essentially splitting your solar bill, your community solar bill, and your utility bill in one payment to your community solar provider. They handle your utility payments. You pay them on a monthly basis at a discounted rate. With dual billing, you will receive both a solar bill and a utility bill at the end of each month. Your utility bill is going to be reduced according to the amount of credit allocations that have been applied to the bill. So you're going to be paying much more of a solar bill than a utility bill, but they'll be split and independent of each other. Now, EnergySage overview for how this looks with community solar. We can kind of breeze through this pretty quick here. If we want to go slide. Customer journey, as a starting point for rooftop solar. Essentially, we ideally try to help you get a starting point for research. So we have thousands of content pieces on our site to help you get educated, both for community solar and rooftop solar, to really get an idea of the tech that's out there, what's available in your area. Once you're ready to do so, and you can sign up with us for quotes, we actually get you concrete quotes for rooftop options within our platform. Installers on our site, to quickly talk about our installer vetting process. We are independent of each installer within our platform, but we vet every company on our site. They are all partners of ours, and we do our best to do our due diligence and make sure that every company quoting you through our site we believe is reputable. And we say no to companies when we think they're not fit, and that we don't want our customers working through us to work with them. So we do the vetting for you, but we also give you as much information as you need to vet on your own as well. Once you've gotten the bids, you can take your time to review the info, dig in, and find out whatever info you would find helpful. Once you select which contractor you'd like to work with for your solar install, it's a quick and easy process. You get moving forward with them. We get you connected. We get a meeting on the calendar for you with them, and we help accelerate that process from there. And to speak to my team again, so I'm a member of our energy advising team. We have a team of great advisors, such as myself, who are here to assist you every step of the process here, from understanding the technology, comparing your quotes, all the way through your full installation and coordination with your installer. We do our best to help make this as seamless as possible. If you've registered with us before, these pages probably look familiar. If you haven't, here's a quick snapshot of what some of the quote views look like on our site. I'm sure it looks like a lot of info right off the bat here, mostly just a wall of numbers until you get a chance to dig into it. But at the end of the day, we want you to see what the cost really looks like for you. We want you to see what the benefit really looks like for you. You can read into reviews and certifications for your installer, do some comparisons on the equipment they're quoting. Any information you'd find helpful, we have it here for you. And we have good rating systems for each contractor as well. So you can not only figure out what system is the best match for you, but what company is the best fit for your install as well. Again, energy advisor support. We are here. We have your best interest in mind. We're completely unbiased. Our goal is really just to help you go solar and make that process as easy as possible. Understandably, if you're a customer looking at this process, at the end of the day, the companies here, they are trying to sell you something. You know, they're providing a resource that we think is valuable for you, that they think is valuable for you, but you know, they do have some skin in the game. And so we want you to have a resource where you can ask questions on comparisons between your bids at an objective level and really just kind of get down to the facts. So I'd say you should feel free to lean on us as a resource for that and try to help kind of cut through the smoke, so to speak, and figure out what actually matters most for your search. Yeah, and how to get started here, Ben. I don't know if you want to take this one, but if you're ready
Sure.
to proceed and you want to kick things off, we have options for you to get registered right over here and help support and work through Green Energy Consumers Alliance in the process.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed on all the process for what it looks like once they arrive on EnergySage. Did just want to highlight one more time here. You can use the QR code if you want to do the mobile version. ET dropped a link in the chat to check out the solar page on the green energy consumers side. Mentioned at the top, but if you do go solar through EnergySage and our partnership with Green Energy Consumers, we will make a donation back to Green Energy Consumers to continue to support the excellent, really important work that they're doing. We are proud to be partners, and yeah, I think now we can kind of go off to the Q&A. I know we've got a long list in the Q&A if you want to take over, ET.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I bet you can guess, but the most upvoted questions right now are about batteries. So let's start there. What's the cost benefit analysis of a battery backup? And also sort of the benefits of the battery versus returning the excess to the grid.
Definitely. Yeah. So, and I know obviously I would imagine we have a split here a bit between Massachusetts and Rhode Island, potentially other areas within New England. So batteries, I always want to emphasize they're an optional addition. Some people will go into the search thinking that they need a battery in order to sell back to the grid, for example. That is not true. Your solar will function fine without a battery as long as you maintain a stable grid connection. The battery, again, I would say primarily is a resource for people who value the home resiliency, who want solar in a way to help make them more independent from the grid. Massachusetts, I will say, does have a battery incentive. We have the Connected Solutions program in Massachusetts, which does help offset some of the cost of the battery. But in general, as long as you live in a territory that has full net metering or even partial net metering, it's unlikely the battery will pay for itself. Solar on its own will pay for itself. So if your primary goal for solar is just to generate clean power and save money in the process, I typically wouldn't recommend a battery. If you value the resiliency in addition to your energy performance, then I'd say a battery can help. And oftentimes the long-term cost of the battery is not going to be quite as high as what you see on the price sheet. But I would say that's worth putting into perspective. So solar largely is a savings, it has a savings value. The battery on its own is likely more of a, at best, it'll pay for itself. At worst, it'll be a bit of an extra cost on top of your system. So understanding what your goals are for the battery, I'd say are helpful going into the process. And if you decide, hey, at this point, I'm not necessarily sold on the cost of the battery, then you could put off that to a later date, maybe reconsider it a couple of years from now. But yeah, that's, I would say, for the cost benefit analysis there, that's generally how I look at it.
I'm seeing a couple questions on solar panels themselves, panels versus solar shingles, and things like, does the color make a difference in performance? More information on the panels themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll add on just a quick point to plug out the buyer's guide on EnergySage. For anyone looking to compare equipment, we have ideally a resource to help compare pretty much every commercially available panel on the market. You can read in their spec sheets, see the efficiency, degradation rate, warranty coverage. So any equipment you get quoted, we have options for you to help compare it side by side with other brands, other models. In terms of panels versus solar shingles, this is an interesting question. We get it a lot. Solar shingles, I'd say, are not terribly popular at this point. There's just aren't that many companies that do them. Tesla is really the big one. There's a couple smaller ones that make them, but generally it's a product designed for people who need a full re-roof and are looking to just fully go with the integrated option. In general, I'd say it is expensive. It's likely not going to save you quite as much money as a traditional install. Some people prefer that and are okay dropping some savings for the aesthetic difference, but overall, I'd say if it's available in your area, absolutely feel free to look into it as an alternative, understanding that you're going to see a bit of a higher price point. There are plenty of areas that there just are not really options for it at this point. Installations tend to be a lot more delayed. So if you have a good roof for solar right now, you don't really need to mess with the program, so to speak, then I'd say the traditional solution is absolutely still a viable product. And I do think solar shingles are going to get more popular over time as they're more widely adopted, but still pretty early on them. If I can jump into one good question here, ET, I'm scrolling through the
Yep,
list.
do it.
Good question right at the end here from Mark Berman. How does EnergySage get paid? This is a great question, and one we get a lot as well. And understanding what our skin in the game is absolutely, I'd say, an important starting point. So to give some background on EnergySage, we were really started in the early 2010s as an educational resource, as we do now for homeowners looking to go solar. Though we are private, we've gotten a lot of funding from the Department of Energy, as well as some state level clean energy agencies in places like New England, such as the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, which actually is a program I used to work at. Though we are private, we've gotten a lot of public funding, and we are funded as well in part by the installers who use our platform. So we like to value ourselves as a consumer protection resource. We've gotten federal funding as part of that. And in turn, with installers sort of paying us a fee to use the service, which is really how we stay in business, our goal is to vet the contractors within our network. We provide them a platform to connect with more customers. And in turn, we try to make it an even playing field so that you can know that you're getting objective level and info between the different quotes. So again, among the installers on our platform, we play no favorites. And in part, our goal is to just make clean energy as accessible as possible to help as many people go solar as we can.
A couple questions about EnergySage that I also want to flag here. Somebody asking if I already have quotes, can EnergySage review them? And also someone saying I did sign up for EnergySage and haven't heard anything for a few weeks. So just looking for any insights on those.
Yeah, for account specific stuff, I'm absolutely happy to help look into that for you and figure out what might have happened. I believe for that question as well, it sounded like you had registered a few years ago. So that might have been a hiccup with dual accounts there. We do sometimes have accounts get flagged if you already have an existing one. Our contact info will be available, right, ET? I would be happy to follow up with that customer independently, and we can figure that out. And the other question was,
have quotes already outside.
Yeah. So I will say I would always recommend you register an account with us first before we find a time to have a session, as it is usually helpful to have a couple EnergySage bids as a comparison. If you have both, if you have some EnergySage bids on and off, happy to help you try to put them on more of an even playing field, more of an even level, and kind of talk through the differences there. But yeah, definitely recommend you get an account registered first to take a look through that. Again, totally free to use for the consumer, no upfront cost required at all for using our platform. We take no payment in that from you. You just get your quotes within a couple of days and start a comparison there.
So we have 10 minutes left, and I see a lot of questions. So I just want to let the audience know what we're going to do. It's a lot of questions about EV charging installation. So we'll put a little time on that, but also a few questions about the roof. So I want to kind of look at roof questions and EV charging questions, and then we'll try to get to some more of the specific questions. But if we don't, we are going to follow up. You are going to be able to connect back with us. And again, if you register for EnergySage, you can easily schedule a time to talk directly to someone like Matt about your issue, and it's free. So I'm just going to make sure we put that out there. So just looking at some of the roof questions, one of our upvoted questions was also that, what if I put them on my garage and not my roof or somewhere else?
So if your garage has a stable roof structure, that's absolutely a fine alternative, and the installers can just reroute that back to the main electric panel. If the garage is not quite as stable of a structure, it doesn't really have the necessary support needed for a solar install, the installer will confirm that before they install. So, and a solar installer will not work on a roof they believe is not stable for solar. So at best, that's absolutely fine, and a lot of people will put panels on their garage. At worst, the installer will at least confirm for you that it's not feasible and work through alternatives there. So I would recommend getting some quotes on it, having a contractor come out for a site survey. I don't think we touched on that much during the presentation, but that's a key part of the process is once you're ready, having a company actually come out firsthand, take a look at the property, take a look at the roof, and then they finalize their design. So if your garage is stable, if it has a good recent roof, that's absolutely a fine alternative. I know I saw one question as well that was asking about having roof shingles replaced before the install. This is another great question. If your roof is somewhat dated, especially, it is generally recommended. Again, look at solar as a 25, 30-year install. You want your roof to be able to age with that. If your roof is within 10 years old, I would actually say solar does extend the lifespan of a roof. So it's very possible your roof will age with the panels at that point. There's no direct sunlight, there's no snow, wind, hail. the panel protects it from a lot of that. But if your roof is 15 to 20 years old, for example, and would probably need replaced in the next 5 to 10 years at least, I would say it's probably worth accelerating that and redoing the roof as a part of the install. A lot of solar installers will also do roofing for that reason, is that they'll offer you a re-roof to roll everything together, or they'll work with a local roofer to help you get that done. But yeah, so it's not going to be necessary for everyone, but for people for whom your roof might need it, it's absolutely recommended.
And as Matt said, they're going to look for that. But if you have specific questions, like there was one about, concern in the attic earlier, you got to ask. You will have installers come out to your home to assess your solar potential and what it might actually take to get solar onto your roof. That's the part of it that a step you'll go through, and you can have multiple installers do it. So get their opinions on what you're concerned about. And the time between having a new roof installed and then having a solar installation installed shouldn't matter, correct? So long as the roof is done.
Exactly.
Dirty.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need to have the panels put in the very next day. You have a bit of a window there. But again, obviously, the earlier the panels are installed, the earlier you can get a full interconnection done.
Okay, so electric cars. There are a lot of questions in the chat, so feel free, Matt and Ben, to jump on them. But yeah.
So maybe just a general sort of discussion around looking at EVs as a tangential extension of solar. See, EVs add a pretty substantial addition in terms of total usage on your home. So I'd say for sizing solar with the plan for an EV, you typically want to oversize a bit. EV might use an extra 2,500 to 3,500 kilowatt hours a year, roughly, depending on habit. So keep that in mind. Try to have an idea of how much you drive and plan that out for when you think the EV might be coming. For adding EV charging, I think that was a number of the other questions. A lot of solar installers can also do that. They'll help you put in an EV charging outlet. They can potentially put in a direct solar to EV charging station as part of their inverter choice, though that's not required. There are plenty of products out there available for that as well. So it's absolutely not something you have to do together, but oftentimes it can make sense to if you think it's coming. So at the end of the day, just a conversation worth having with your solar installers to see what they recommend, see what they offer. No need to do it right away, but it can make a lot of sense to do it together. Doing a quick look through a couple of the questions here as well.
There was
one question of
the
payback period question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I noticed that in terms of money and body carbon, we actually help you display both. So once you get quotes through EnergySage, you'll be able to see both the amount of time it'll take for a system to pay for itself and avoided utility cost. You'll be able to see the lifetime savings of the system over a 20-year period. And we'll also help you display exactly how much carbon offset you'll be able to get within an individual quote as well, just based purely on the system output in production. So we help you get through all that info that you might find helpful. I saw one question here about a two-family home, understanding that you could only attach solar to one of the systems, but what if you want to get solar for both families? Is there a way to do that? This is a great question and particularly relevant in, I would say, Massachusetts, as Massachusetts does support virtual net metering. Net metering, again, when you get credits for energy sent back to the grid. Virtual net metering allows you to share credits between meters. So your system in general can only be applied to one electric meter. So if you have a two-family home with two individual meters, you can only install a system for each individual meter. So you can't have one system that covers both electric meters and both panels. You have to have it dedicated to one panel or install a split system, just two independent systems. With virtual net metering, you could essentially, let's say, put in a system that it creates enough power to cover both meters. It'll export all of that power back to the grid, and then you essentially split the credits from the grid that you're getting across both individual meters through what we call a Schedule Z that you would apply for through the utility. So that is area dependent, so it requires you be in a territory that's supported for that. But I'd say if you're interested in that, again, discuss that with your installer. They'll help you figure out the eligibility and help you submit that application when you're fully installing. But you will need to own the full property. So if you own the two-family, you can look into doing that. Yep. Maintenance question here is a good one. What actual maintenance is there? Cleaning, removing debris, damage from hail? Very little. Cleaning is typically not going to be necessary all that often, as long as you live in an area that sees even somewhat consistent rainfall. Maybe cleaning the panels every couple of years could be helpful, especially if you live in an area with, let's say, frequent bird droppings or something like that. But overall, it's really not. It's fairly self-cleaning, fairly self-sufficient. As long as there's no damage to the system itself, there's not a whole lot that would need to be done. Hail damage. If you live in an area with some hail, panels are rated for hail up to a certain degree. If you see hail that exceeds that, essentially you could have a couple panels get somewhat damaged from hail. Maybe you break a couple cells. That's not going to have a huge impact on the panel performance, but if you notice a pretty big drop off after a hailstorm, it's probably worth having it looked at. But again, if your system's working properly, there's no regular upkeep necessary.
Can you see the question from Stephen about, I have heard of some homeowners facing a large charge from the utility to upgrade transformers in their neighborhood before they hook up solar. Have you heard anything about things like that? I personally haven't, but I'm not always on the pulse of that stuff.
It's rare, but it can happen. There are areas where essentially it's not common, especially in areas where solar, if you live in an area where you already see a pretty frequent amount of solar installs, almost certainly this won't be necessary for you. There are areas with out-of-date utility grid infrastructure where some utilities, because they need to upgrade part of the grid for you to be able to go solar, will require that you help front some of the payment for electric utility upgrades. Again, I would not say you should go into the search expecting this to be the case. It is pretty rare, but it's not unheard of, in particular in some other areas on the East Coast, although Massachusetts, I'd say this is not too common.
We've got time for, I think, one more, and I keep going back to the roof, but because it is such a big question, there's one more roof question. Metal versus asphalt shingles, like what are there any benefits or prohibitions based on what your roof is?
So roofing material is relevant. Different roofing materials will require different racking systems in some cases. Some installers won't work with certain roof types if they're particularly niche and the installer doesn't have experience with them. But for that example of asphalt shingle versus metal, both are absolutely doable, especially standing seam metal roofs. I'd actually say installers really like working with those because it doesn't require any direct penetration. So understand what your roof type is and make sure that you're clear with that when you go into the search with your installer. But I'd say there aren't that many roof materials that are just strictly no-goes for solar. So, foam roofs can be problematic. Cedar shake, if anyone here still has one of those, are usually no-goes. Slate roofs are usually no-goes. But any sort of shingle, metal roof type structure is typically going to be fine to work with. Even flat roofs, as long as you have open space availability, are doable.
Well, so just because I can, I'm throwing one more at you because I think it's a great one. And you might have answered it, so sorry if I missed it, but if the panels are damaged and you own them, who pays for that? Like, what kind of insurance do you get?
Yeah, this is a great question. So panels are going to be rated for a certain degree of weather pressure. So snow, wind, hail, even fire damage, panels are going to be rated up to a certain degree within the warranty. And if the damage to the panels fell within what was specifically rated on the spec sheet, it would be covered under replacement by the manufacturer. Anything in excess of that, it likely would not be covered under warranty, but would potentially be covered under your homeowner's insurance. So going solar, I'd say confirm with your insurance provider on what they cover as far as solar is concerned and make sure that it fits within your policy. But overall, I'd say likely one or the other. If it doesn't fall within either, then you might see a fee associated with swapping out some damaged equipment, which is just something worth keeping in mind. But again, is if you, as long as you live in an area that doesn't see super extreme weather pressure, it's probably not a huge concern. Even in Massachusetts, we see some good snowfall from time to time. Snow is almost never a concern for solar. You'll see some decreased production during the winter, but snow is largely going to slide right off. That's a pretty common question.
So I am so impressed that Matt got through so many questions. It's 1:02, so I want to be aware of time. I want to thank you all for coming. If you have not registered for EnergySage, again, it's free and there's zero obligation to do anything once you register. And then it will give you access to someone like Matt if you want to have deeper conversations with them. Also, the EnergySage website has a ton of videos and reading and resources you can check out. If you are going to register for EnergySage, I do recommend you go through greenenergyconsumers.org/solar so our nonprofit can get that kickback if you ultimately do decide to install through an EnergySage process. And I just want to say thanks to all these amazing attendees with amazing questions. We are going to follow up so you can access us and so you can access Matt's team if you want to talk more. And we really just appreciate you coming. And thanks again, Matt and Ben and Kate, for managing the slides.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for joining. We're always happy to do more of these. Green Energy Consumers Alliance is a fantastic partner of ours. Absolutely, to double down on that, we'll be passing out contact info. You'll have my email address. Feel free to follow up with any other questions you have. And if you have any issues registering with EnergySage, feel free to let us know as well. We'll help you get some quotes in to start considering your solar options.
We're going to send you the slides and a recording of this session. And at youtube.com/masterenergy1982, there is already a recording of a session we did 2 weeks ago, which was very similar presentation, but the second half was many different questions, including purchase versus lease on solar panels. We really went into in that one. So that's a good watch, the second half of that as well. Again, thank you so much, and we'll sign off. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, ET.